Donald Trump, after the bitter admission that the countries of Europe, Japan, and Australia did not rush to help him in the war against Iran at his request, once again stated that America has already won this war. It was a test, and in general, Trump and the US do not need the help of Europeans because they are weaklings and traitors. In this specific manner, Trump admitted that most of America's NATO allies informed Washington openly that they do not want to participate in a military operation against Iran. At the same time, it is important to note what wording the European partners used in response to Trump's calls to join this war. For example, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius reminded Donald Trump of his own words about the war between Russia and Ukraine. This is not his war and he did not start it. And now Boris Pistorius says the war in Iran is not our war and we did not start it. In response, Trump simply stated that he single-handedly prevented World War III, a nuclear war. My name is Alexei Pechii. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and leave any comment under this episode. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechii News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, US President Donald Trump admitted that most of America's NATO allies told Washington that they do not want to take part in a military operation in Iran. But according to Trump, he knew that already, and anyway, he has already won this war and doesn't need any help from the allies. He says, even if they had agreed, I don't need their help. And no, you misunderstood, he didn't ask for any help, it just seemed that way to you. Next, I'll just quote Donald Trump, but you'll understand everything yourself. Most of the NATO allies, by the way, he puts allies in quotation marks, told the United States that they don't want to participate in our military operation against Iran, even though they agree that Iran should not have nuclear weapons. I'm not surprised. It's always been a one-way street. We protect them and they do nothing for us. Thanks to this success, we don't need NATO's help. We never needed it anyway. The same goes for Japan, Australia, and South Korea. As the President of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, I declare that we don't need anyone's help. Let me make a remark. I'll note that when it happened, the terrorist attack on 9/11, NATO actually got involved in this situation on the side of the United States of America. That's why this is such cynicism that it's hard to even comprehend. Well, let's continue. And just so no one has any doubts that Trump has already defeated Iran on his own and really doesn't need any help, he stated that the US and Israel's military operation against Iran prevented World War III. According to him, if he hadn't made the decision to attack the Islamic Republic, Tehran would have had nuclear weapons within a month, which it would have used against Israel and other Middle Eastern countries. Quote, a nuclear war would have started, which would have escalated into World War III, and even more importantly, it would have been a war after which nothing would be left at all. Well, basically, Trump has already accepted Lukashenko into his peace council. Well, let him ask Lukashenko to show 4 directions from which the attack was being prepared. And indeed, the European NATO partners refused to participate in the war, and not without reason. In Europe, they remembered all of Donald Trump's insults, all his statements, all his humiliations. For example, Trump has repeatedly stated that Russia's war against Ukraine is not his war, and he didn't start it. Trump blamed everything on Joe Biden and said that actually it's possible to negotiate with Putin diplomatically, like, why are you fighting? And just recently, the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said, and I quote, listen closely to this quote, "This is not our war. We didn't start it. We want diplomatic solutions and a quick end to the conflict." But additional military ships in the region are unlikely to help with that. The Americans chose this path together with the Israelis. We criticize this only very cautiously. But dragging us into this conflict, Germany is responsible for the eastern flank of NATO and for the Atlantic. That is our main responsibility. Everything else is something that can be added in certain cases or may not be added at all. And you know, this is a clear response to Trump. In fact, these are the same words he used when he attacked Europe. French President Emmanuel Macron also reminded Trump of his statement about Russia's war against Ukraine and said that France would never participate in operations to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. Quote, "We are not a party to the conflict, and therefore France will never take part in operations to open or liberate the Strait of Hormuz under the current circumstances." And on this matter, I like The Guardian's comment, quote, "If there was ever a moment when the lack of a US strategy toward Iran became obvious, this is it." On Saturday, March 14th, American President Donald Trump demanded that the UK, China, France, Germany, Japan, and other countries help protect the Strait of Hormuz. Washington does not seem to have fully anticipated what might happen next. Iran had few effective military options to respond to the US operation. But attacks on American military bases, attacks on US allies, and commercial shipping in the Persian Gulf were the most obvious. The response was an attempt to harm the West. So far, during 2 weeks of bombings, the US has focused on the Iranian fleet and missile bases. But this did not help eliminate the asymmetric threat hanging over unprotected merchant ships. 10 days ago, Trump called on tanker owners to show courage and make the passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Although the US Navy said they were not ready, they are ready to tackle this problem. The US did not do this because the aircraft carrier strike group Abraham Lincoln can be stationed 200 kilometers from Oman and strike Iran with virtually no risk. But Trump was urging the tankers to go right into the epicenter of that risk. And it's important to note here that theoretically Iran has a whole arsenal of means for small-scale attacks on tankers. Against tankers and ships in the Strait of Hormuz, this includes high-speed boats of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, unmanned aerial vehicles, and up to 5,000 naval mines. However, considering the lessons from Russia's war against Ukraine, there are signs that Iran is achieving the greatest success by attacking with maritime drones. Although Trump said the day before that there are no maritime drones, he says it's all fake. And all the attack videos are just artificially generated videos. And I'm not joking. This is a real statement from the American president. And another quote from The Guardian: "Trump, who was obsessed with military power, had little desire to cooperate with any country except Israel, and no country wanted to join the war against Iran. As a result, the preparation of the US allies' fleet before the start of the war was absent. Neither Britain, nor France, nor Japan, nor China had warships ready to perform escort duties in the Strait of Hormuz." The response to Trump's call for help was restrained. Japan simply stated that it had not yet received an official request from the US. And China did not respond to the call at all. Well, it got to the point where Trump, as you know, started threatening to break up NATO if the allies didn't join this war. And you know what the paradox is? The entire Donald Trump administration has been insisting for more than a year that European allies should focus on defending their own European continent, not the Middle East, the Indo-Pacific region, or any other territories. Trump himself said that Europe should defend itself, while the US will bring order to other regions. Trump said, "We're leaving Europe because we need to focus on something else." And finally, I'll mention another important fact that shows how Trump created chaos and now, is reaping its consequences. Here, at the White House, they recently blamed Great Britain for not anticipating, as an ally, the need for a warship in the Middle East region, when the US was forming 2 carrier strike groups. But the thing is, the Royal Navy in the United Kingdom focused on deploying the aircraft carrier Prince of Wales in the North Atlantic as part of a mission to protect the Arctic. Which is exactly what Donald Trump demanded when he threatened to seize Greenland. It's not clear at all what the complaint against the British is now. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like the video. If you found this episode interesting or useful, you can support our YouTube channel financially with any donation, paid subscription, or sponsorship on YouTube. How to do this? All the links and details are in the description of this video or by scanning the QR code on your screen. I will be grateful for any support. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.